All right, folks, let's get this party started here. Good evening, good afternoon, depending on which part of the country you're in. We have folks here from New York. We have folks from Florida, a lot of folks from Florida. We have folks from California. So pretty much the entire country is present today. Hey, I want to thank you for joining. I also want to congratulate you for joining tonight. I think you're going to find that this is a much more valuable use of your time than watching Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial reruns, although it is getting kind of exciting. We have a new personality. Dr. Spiegel has entered the picture now, which is very interesting. When you get a chance, make sure you tune in on YouTube and watch a little bit about Dr. Spiegel, who I think it was today made himself to the stand as an expert witness. I'm Charlie Gipple. I'm the owner of CG Financial Group. And again, I want to thank you. I want to congratulate you for being on this call. Before I go any further, I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to ask that you respond in the question and answer pane. And that question is, can you see me and can you hear me okay? Is our audio visual working okay? Can you see me and can you hear me? If you could tell me yes or no down below, that would be great. Whether it's in the chat or the question and answer session, that's good. Yes, we have, well, we have an audience of close to 100, it looks like, and all of you are saying, yep, all is good. So excellent. I'm going to move on here. A few housekeeping items before we get moving. Number one is AV. Yes, it looks like we're good to go there. Number two is ask questions as we go. So a part of the method to the madness is ask questions as we go. That was why I wanted you to kind of get accustomed to how the controls work. As we go, I'll correspond back and forth with you. I can't open up the phone lines because we've all been on one of those conference calls where somebody puts you on hold and you get that hold music and it kind of renders the conference call useless. So we don't want that. So in the meantime, we're going to ask questions over the questions and answer pane there. Number three, please take the evaluation at the end. I want to know how these webinars are going for you fine folks. We did a webinar with, it was around 230 registrants from across the country. This was about a month ago on Social Security filing strategies. And it was all 9s and 10s on that particular evaluation. So please tell us how we did here. Also on that evaluation, there's going to be a question. And that question is, do you want to remain plugged into these calls that I'm going to do on a monthly basis? Next month, I'm doing a call on where to save where nowhere feels safe. Where to save your money when nowhere feels safe. Does anybody know what I'm talking about when I say when nowhere feels safe? Well, I'll tell you, the bond market is down 11% year to date, the aggregate bond market. And these are investments that are supposed to be safe, right? We've grown accustomed to thinking that bonds were safe, that, hey, if I have a 50% stock, 50% bond portfolio, then that 50% bond portfolio, it's safe. No, not this year, not as interest rates increase, as I've been preaching for a couple of decades now. Nowhere to go feels safe today. And that's what the webinar is next month. So in short, please make sure you ask questions throughout this webinar. Make sure you stick around for the evaluation at the end. And on that evaluation that's going to pop up when I close out the webinar, make sure you tell us if you want to stay plugged in and get the invites as we go forward month after month after month as we get new topics here. So there are 10,000 baby boomers or 10,000, well, yeah, 10,000 baby boomers turning age 65 every single day. 10,000 baby boomers turning age 65 every single day. A lot of those folks 20 years from now are going to be turning 85, right? Thus, what we have that comes along with the privilege of having our population age, because that is a privilege, that speaks to our healthcare system. Well, the problem that comes along with an aging population is the issue of long-term care. Japan has a serious issue. For instance, do you know that in Japan, there are more adult diapers sold today than there are baby diapers in Japan? And that's not just some smart alecky type thing to say, no, that is a true statistic. Now, we're not as old of a population as Japan, but we are getting there. And for heaven's sake, it is so important to take care of this issue before you get to that point, because you don't get any more insurable usually as time goes by, right? I have a friend who once said, problems are like an ice cream cone. When it starts to melt, when the problem happens, you better lick it quick or it's just going to turn into a bigger problem. So I want to congratulate you for taking the initiative to further your education in this area, which is an area that's near and dear to my heart, an area that I work with my clients with every single day, as well as the financial professionals that partner with my company. Now, there are 3 audiences on the call today, 3 audience types, and I want to lay out who these audience members are, because as I go, I may say something that seems a little confusing. I just want to make sure that you know who I'm talking to. The first of 3 audience types is my friends, my family, my clients. For those of you that have joined, thank you for your continued trust. Absolutely thrilled to have you on. I see I have a few families from Southwest Iowa here. You guys know who you are. Thank you very much for joining. And a lot of families here in the Des Moines area. Thank you for joining. The second group is, so my company works as what is called an independent marketing organization. I work as a distributor when it comes to life insurance products, annuity products, sales strategies, information like tax strategies, estate strategies, long-term care planning strategies, and around 300 financial professionals from across the country utilize my services in that area. I do stuff like this today that those financial professionals can plug their clients into, and those clients, well, you are the second audience here. So if you're a client that was invited here by a financial professional, by an advisor, by an agent, I want to congratulate you for working with one of the best financial professionals in the country. How can I say such a thing? Because I only work with the best. I only partner with the best financial professionals from across the country. So whoever that is, we have my guy out in Illinois, Tony. Tony's out in Illinois. Thanks for joining us, Tony. Sal Sophia down in Florida. Sal's here, and he's got a big group of folks on the phone. So you guys are great. Thank you for inviting your clients to this call, and I think that the clients are going to get a lot out of this. The third group is, of course, those financial professionals that partner with me. So if I say something like I'm talking with a financial advisor, or like I'm talking with a consumer, but yet you're not one of those folks, you may say, well, that seems weird. Just know that we have a mixed audience, a very good audience today. So that's the method to the madness. So let's get into the good stuff here. Number 1, the agenda. The agenda is number 1, about me. This is the worst part of every presentation. I feel like I need to tell you a little bit about my background so you can judge if I'm credible or not. But I don't like talking about myself, but I will tell you, I've worked my butt off my entire career to make sure that, well, I have a good story to tell when it comes to this part about me, even though that's the worst part of the presentation. I'm going to spend about 2 minutes on that just to let you know a little bit about who I am so you can judge the credibility of the presentation from here. Maybe you decide to hang up at that point in time. I don't know. Number 2, what is long-term care? I fall victim to being in the business for over 20 years, around 25 years, using acronyms a lot, using acronyms. LTC. I asked some of my clients a while back in a survey, how concerned are you with LTC? Stupid. That's rule number 1. Get rid of the acronyms, right? When talking with folks that are not in the business every day. They're like, what is LTC? I'm sorry, long-term care. Some folks don't even know what long-term care is. So what we're going to do is we're going to define that. Let's see. We have a couple questions already. This is going to be a good group. Alan, the answer is yes. Absolutely. Yes. Let's talk. I do that a lot. So absolutely. The long-term care need, today, like I said, nowhere feels safe. And I use this analogy a lot, mostly in seminars across the country, but I can do it on a webinar. Heck, this is my show. I can do whatever I want. And it's this, and it is the notion of this one pencil right here. This one pencil, think of this one pencil like one stock, one bond, one investment, whatever, one insurance policy. This one thing all by itself, it's weak. It's weak. It's subject to the erosion powers of inflation. It's subject to market ups and downs, market volatility. It's subject to interest rate risk, the risk of losing value when interest rates increase. This one pencil by itself is weak, right? It breaks quite easily. But what is the power of diversification? What happens if you take this one pencil and you diversify it? You diversify it with another stock, another bond, another mutual fund. I'm kind of strong, but I can tell you, I cannot break this. Hulk Hogan himself cannot break this. The Incredible Hulk cannot break this thing. And that is the power of diversification, right? What is my point? It's not about diversification, but my point is even though you may have this nice retirement portfolio, nice retirement savings, this farm, this house, et cetera, there is one risk out there that's equivalent to just lighting the stack of pencils on fire, just lighting it on fire. And I don't care how big your stack of pencils is, it's going to be gone within a couple of minutes, right? What is that risk that I am referring to? What is that fire that I am referring to? I am referring to the long-term care risk. We have a lot of real estate folks on the phone today as well. For those real estate folks, have you ever seen somebody whose spouse had to go to the nursing home? Heck, whose dad or mom had to go to the nursing home, and therefore they had to liquidate, do a fire sale on the property, not the primary property. We'll get into Medicaid here in a bit, but well, maybe it is a primary property that you had to do a fire sale on, a forced liquidation because they cannot pay for their long-term care. We're going to talk about what the cost is of long-term care throughout the country. Not going to bore you with a lot of statistics on it. You'll get the point with about 5 or 6 different statistics. Going to go into 3 different case studies. How do we solve this problem, or how do you work to solve your problem? The issue of, man, I hope my stack of pencils never starts on fire. 3 different case studies showing 3 possible solutions. The area of long-term care products. I hate that word, products, but the area of long-term care solutions, I would argue, has innovated probably more than any other area in financial services. Traditional long-term care insurance that is like health insurance, still great. It's better than ever. I believe prices are more stable than ever. And we'll talk about this, but there have been some beefs that a lot of consumers have with these products. These insurance companies have addressed those beefs with these case studies that I'm going to show you about. So I'm going to talk with you a little bit about how you can address number 2 and number 3 with number 4. Then we're going to talk about the last resort strategy. Medicaid is the payer of last resort. Very important. Folks, I'll ask you this question. This is my first question for you fine folks. Do you automatically get Medicaid when you turn age 65? Do you automatically get Medicaid when you turn age 65? What am I referring to there? What am I referring to there? And I know that's 2 questions, but for those folks that know what I'm talking about, you'll know what I'm talking about. Isn't that the health insurance that we all get when we turn age 65? No, you get Medicare. A lot of people think that Medicaid and Medicare is synonymous. No, Medicaid is for the financially needy, they call it, right? So if you're like a lot of farmers here in the Midwest, they are very land rich, but asset poor. If they're staring down the barrel of them having to go into the nursing home, what are they to do? Well, in order to qualify for Medicaid, you have to have no more than $2,000 in assets. But I don't have $2,000. I have a gazillion acres of farmland, a gazillion dollars in value in farmland. Do I have to start selling that off? For the most part, you do have to start selling that off to get down to less than $2,000. Then and only then do you qualify for Medicaid. And Medicaid, again, the reason you have to do that is because Medicaid is designed for the financially needy. There are strategies to where you do not have to do that. Now, make no mistake, to be very clear, Medicaid is not an alternative for a true long-term care plan. When you have the means to pay for your own long-term care, you just have a heck of a lot more freedom than being on Medicaid. But if Medicaid is the last resort, well, then you know what? Then we need to talk about that, because heaven forbid spending every last penny that you have to get to that Medicaid level. That is not a good strategy. And if you have somebody, which you do, your financial advisor, whether that's me or the person that invited you to this call, I'll kind of wet your whistle a little bit on the Medicaid strategies. But yes, Medicaid is not the same as Medicare. Medicare is what you get automatically at age 65, which is health insurance for the retired. I don't like the word elderly. I'll just say retired. Technically, the verbiage and all the reading that I do, it's the elderly. No, you're not elderly at 65 in my book anyway. So here is the second poll question. Which doggy do you think is the meanest dog of the two? Do you think it's a big red one here or the white one? Which one is the boss of the household here? Is it the red one or is it the white one? Seasoned senior. I like that. Don, seasoned senior. And everybody's saying the white dog, the white dog. All right, here's another poll question. Who does my wife love more, me or that little white dog? Yeah, definitely the white dog. She loves that little white dog. That's Maggie. That's Maggie May, the little white dog. And Seth there was about age 12 or 13 at the time. So that was 3 years ago. And now he's my height and I'm 6'6". So hopefully I don't have to pay for his college. We'll see. All right. So I grew up in Southwest Iowa. So I'm a small town guy. Then when I graduated from high school, I got an academic scholarship to go play basketball. In other words, I went to a Division III college my freshman year. Division III colleges cannot give athletic scholarships. So they gave me an academic scholarship as long as I played basketball for them, right? So that's what I did at a college my freshman year, Loras College. But then I said, this isn't that glamorous. I need to actually study. I'm not going to make the NBA anytime soon. So I transferred to the University in Northern Iowa and graduated with a finance degree, met my wife my junior year, and we have been married ever since for, oh man, what is it? It's 23 years now. We've been married, got married straight out of college. Straight out of college, I was fortunate. I was almost immediately a regional vice president. 25-year-old kid is a regional vice president for ING back in the day when ING was here in the States. So I had some great bosses that trusted me right out of the gate. And as a result, I traveled, I got a lot of exposure. I had enough leash to where I could either hang myself or create a pretty good career for myself. And that career consisted of doing thousands of these types of events, educating consumers as well as financial professionals, appearances in the media. You know, I'm a columnist for various publications right now. So I still write to this day. Got sick of the corporate stuff about 3 years ago. And I said, I'm going to open my own company. I'm going to open CG Financial Group and CG Wealth Management Group, and the rest is history. So here I am working with fine consumers like some of you on the phone and working with the wonderful, wonderful advisors across the country that, well, may have very well invited you to this call. So that's a little bit about my history. I had hair when I got started, which tells you that I've been doing this for a while. And I pride myself on being a never-ending, relentless student of the business. The letters after my name and stuff, that's all good, great, grand. But I do truly try to better myself every day so that you have the strategies, frankly, that nobody else has access. So that when you go to whoever your financial professional's competition is, that person does not know what your financial professional knows, does not know what I know. And your financial professional is that person that works with me, right? So that's a little bit about myself. I'm obsessive with this stuff, and I believe in this stuff. There is, I don't think there's any product on earth that I believe in more than long-term care insurance. That's not the main point of all this. We'll talk a little bit about the solutions, but this is not a big pitch about long-term care insurance. That is the solution to this problem that you need to be aware of. So what is long-term care? Here's what long-term care is. Here is the formal definition. It is the care that you may need if you are unable to perform daily activities on your own. Now, those activities are things like eating, bathing, dressing, transferring, and using the bathroom. The goal of long-term care is to help you maintain your lifestyle as you age. As I just alluded to, Medicare, Medicare supplement insurance, and health insurance you may have at work usually will not pay for long-term care. Here's a question for you. I have a couple folks in Southwest Iowa I've been working with. You know who you are. My question to you, or anybody else for that matter, I just know that they know, how many days of long-term care does Medicare cover? How many days of long-term care in the nursing home does Medicare cover? I'll wait for a few of the answers to come in. I have a couple already. Dana, yeah. I have one of my favorite families there in Southwest Iowa that's answered. Yeah, so I have various answers. 20 and 100 are the various answers. You're both right. The first 20 days is 100% covered by Medicare. Now, you have to have left the hospital, basically, and have been in the hospital for 3 days prior to that nursing home stay. But then that nursing home stay, it's free for 20 days. Then after that 20 days, for the next 80 days, it's no longer free. There's a sizable copay that you have to pay, but Medicare still does offset some of those costs. So my answer would have been 100, but 20, yes, 20 is the correct answer as well. 20 plus 80 equals 100. So that's what Medicare does. Other than that, you're on your own. You're on your own, right? What about day 101? Then you're going to see what the bill is going to look like as the months go by. You either fund it out of your pocket, you have a long-term care policy, or a hybrid, a combination product, which we'll talk about, that'll take care of that cost, or you go on Medicaid. You spend down all of your assets to $2,000 and you go on Medicaid. Those are basically the options for funding it. So not only is it very expensive, it's very probable. If you look over here to the left, actually, I'm going to get fancy today. I'm going to show you something here. I'm going to get fancy and I'm going to show you this. Boom. What do you think of that? All right. So I have a red laser here, a giant laser. There's a 7 in 10 probability that if you're over the age of 65, you will experience something called a long-term care event. Again, not only is it probable, very probable, but it's also very expensive, as we're going to talk about here in a bit. Now, I come from a pretty rugged family. My dad dug ditches, poured concrete his entire life. And if you talked with him about this risk of long-term care, oh, I'm good. I'm good. You know, I'll be fine. You know, these are people that have supported other people their entire lives, you know, big, strong people that never would fathom the thought that maybe it is them that possibly ends up having to be taken care of. Many of us have gone through the emotional process of seeing others, you know, big, strong, tough people, or not, maybe not big and strong, but tough people that have to rely on other people to take care of them. And this is why there is nothing in my business, and advisors, share with me here. There is nothing in my business that is more emotional than, for a family, than watching their family members go through long-term care events, so to speak. Folks, am I right? Am I right? Who has experienced this? Who would agree with me or who would disagree with me? It's because watching somebody go from a stage of 100% independence, as a matter of fact, having people depend on them to the opposite, it's tough. So what is my point there? My point is, as many times as no, I'll be good. Don't even want to talk about it here. It's not about them. It's not about me. It's not about you. It is about the people that will ultimately have to take care of you, because look at this statistic here. Those that give care, 63% of them say, I'm paying for a huge chunk of the care. And I'm going to go into mental issues when it comes to those that are giving care, right? So it's not about me. It's not about you. It's about the folks that ultimately will, not inevitably, but likely, maybe possibly have to take care of you, right? And 100% of those families are impacted. I have a ton of comments coming in here. I literally have probably about 30 comments coming in here. Yes, amen to that. It is horrible to watch and care for them. So true, experiencing it right now, John. Emotionally, physically, mentally exhausting. There is only one circumstance where I consistently get this when it comes to insurance. I get all the time people coming to me, hey, I want to invest for retirement, or hey, can you run a financial plan on me? I get that all the time, the stocks and bonds and all that stuff. that is fun because people are saving for themselves, right? Do you think every day I have somebody calling me up though and saying, hey, I want to buy some life insurance? No, insurance is kind of boring, right? I will tell you, however, the most enthusiastic insurance conversations that I have, the very few times where I have folks come to me and say, I want this type of insurance and I want it now. What type of insurance is it? It's long-term care insurance. Why is that? What did that person just experience, either themselves or they've witnessed somewhere else? They've experienced exactly what we're talking about, a long-term care event. So my point there is it's hugely emotional and it's hugely financially draining. So let's talk about 6 activities of daily living. Yeah, both parents at the same time. I'm going to read some of these comments for you guys. So true, experiencing it right now, both parents at the same time. By the way, Dan, tell me, how much is that a month? I don't know if it's a nursing home or whatever, but both parents at the same time, what is the cost of that? I'm curious. Amen to that. Let's see, life insurance with living benefits. We're getting to that, baby. Yep, we'll get to that. Yeah, a lot of the same commentary. Okay, so this list right here, this is an important list when we talk about not just long-term care, but also this many times is a trigger, almost all the time is the trigger in various solutions, various long-term care policies. And it looks something like this. We, the insurance company, will give you your benefits due based off the policy that you bought, which we'll get into 3 case studies here again. We will give it to you when and only when you cannot do 2 of 6 activities of daily living for at least X period of time. Usually it's a 90-day period of time. So these activities of daily living here, yes, it's important to know that, yeah, when you can't do these, you probably need long-term care, right? But beyond that, if you cannot do 2 of 6 of these, that is usually a trigger if you had a long-term care policy, for example. You know, it's interesting. I heard somebody say once that this is the order in which, many times, it varies. There are a couple here where I would question, but many times this is the order in which we lose our activities of daily living, right? Bathing, you know, many times people will have somebody come to their house. And by the way, folks, make no mistake, people want to be taken care of in their home. They don't want nursing home insurance, so to speak. I get that all the time. Oh, nursing home insurance. They want to be taken care of in their home. The bulk of the claims today are for in-home care. When I was at Genworth, the #1 insurance company in the world when it came to long-term care at the time, 76% of first-time claims came from in the home care policies, paying for somebody to come to help you bathe, to help you dress, to help you transfer around your house, right? But it is interesting when you think about it that, yeah, folks tend to lose these in the order that I listed here, right here. Even more interesting, and my main point is somebody once said, the inverse of that is when we get, is how we gain them, right? So think of a baby. What's the first thing we do? It's kind of sad, right? First thing we do is we eat, then we gain continence. Continence, of course, being able to hold our bladder, hold our bowels. We learn to toilet, obviously. We learn to transfer. We learn to dress ourselves. We learn to bathe. In the opposite order is when humans tend to lose those. But we are a civilized species. I've written a lot about this, that, you know, coyotes, I coyote hunt occasionally. If you're ill, if you're an older coyote, and if you're ill, nature just takes care of you, right? Unfortunately, I mean, it's a morbid way to put it. Nature takes care of you. You are left behind. We as a civilized species cannot do that, but we have a conundrum when it comes to that. We cannot leave the weak behind. So therefore, how do we finance this? This is a public problem. This is a pandemic here, and it is the lack of the means to cover long-term care. So there are various settings to where one can have their care taken care of. Like I said, the top here, in-home care, is what many people prefer. In the state of Iowa, If you can't afford any of this and you go on Medicaid, there are some capabilities for having in-home care. It's called a waiver. In the home waiver, I forget what the acronym is, but it's in-home waiver, to where the state makes you jump through a couple of hoops, but you can get taken care of in the home if that turns out to be cheaper than being taken care of in the nursing home. But for the most part, when you're on Medicaid, it is usually just this down here to the lower right for the most part, right? At least without jumping through hoops. Again, people, they want to at least start out in their home. Any policy that I offer and any of the financial professionals I work with, whether it's Tony out in Illinois, Sal, has the in-home benefits, right? To be able to take care of yourself in the home and have the insurance company pay for it. And, you know, the broader category of in-home care, it's divided into two different areas. One is more of kind of a social aspect, you know, kind of a helping hand aspect, and that's called homemaker services. On the right-hand side, you have true hand-to-hand, so to speak, hands-on care assistance with bathing, maybe medication, transferring, all of that good stuff. But then, of course, you have adult daycare, kind of like, to use a analogy, kind of like a country club for older folks, right? You can go, you can socialize, you can hang out. But then down on the lower part, you have assisted living and you have the nursing home. Poll question, like my 10th poll question already, right? What is the median cost? Call it average. Average and median's not the same, but what is the median cost of a private room in a nursing home today? What is the median cost of a private room in a nursing home today? $5,000 a month? No. 12,000 a month? That's a little steep. Probably where you're at, it is. Yeah, so we have some good answers coming in. We're going to get to that. That's a teaser. We're going to get to that right now, as a matter of fact. So let's go over the costs. So we know the types of facilities or your home that you can be taken care of in when it comes to, well, just long-term care in general. We're not talking about any solutions, any products, nothing like that. We're just talking about long-term care in general. Well, how much do these various settings, how much do they cost? Home health aid, that is the one on the right here, home health aid services. Excuse me, I have the hiccups here. Around $5,000 a month. What about homemaker services? That's kind of the more social thing, just kind of a helping hand. Still just a helping hand. I'm going to help fold clothes. My wife needs one of these, right? She hates folding clothes. Does anybody else hate folding laundry? We get like piles and piles and piles, and she's a tough lady, but she absolutely dreads folding laundry. You know, homemaker services, folding laundry, doing the dishes, helping out. Yep. $59,000 per year, crazy cost. What about assisted living? $54,000 per year. What about the big one I just asked about? It's around $9,000 a month. $9,000 a month, $108,000 per year. That's crazy. And they're increasing. So here you have in-home care costs. Again, $61,000 for home health aid, homemaker services, $59,000. Folks, here's another poll question. The question is this: look at that steep increase. What happened in the year 2020 to 2021? Why the heck have the prices gone off the charts for in-home care? What happened there? That's right, COVID. People somewhat apprehensive to go to the nursing home, right? The huge amount of supply, or the huge amount of demand, I should say, for homemaker and home health aid services. But even without that, $61,000 today, 18 years ago, it was only $42,000. They just keep going up. Assisted living facilities, $54,000. Back 18 years ago, it was half. It was around half of that. So the prices are going up faster than inflation. And this, folks, is called senior inflation. Inflation's crazy everywhere now. 8.5% inflation. Here's a statistic that will depress you. With inflation running at an 8% rate, how long does it take for one's money to be chopped in half with inflation running at 8% per year. So let's say you have 100 grand sitting under your mattress right now, and that 100 grand is losing its purchasing power to the tune of 8% per year. How long will it take for that $100,000 to be worth only $50,000? 9 years. 9 years. So in 9 years, assuming inflation is going to stay at 8%, so my point there is make sure your money is working for you, folks. There are great annuities out there that are guaranteeing high rates. There's all kinds of stuff out there where you can offset inflation, but there are very few places that are as bad as leaving your money under the mattress in times like today. But if inflation were to go back to normal, long-term around 3%, just rest assured that this type of stuff increases faster than what the inflation rate does. And that is called senior inflation. Once we get older, we tend to buy stuff that's a little more inflation intensive, right? Such as food in proportion to our overall income, such as housing, such as medical costs, such as prescription drugs. Those inflate faster than, well, what we generally spend when you're 45 years old, for example. $108,000 18 years ago, it was a little more than half of that. So the prices continue to increase there. So this is the impact on caregivers that I alluded to earlier. So Genworth does these studies, and this study is a couple years old, but what it found is caregivers are impacted. Again, it's not about me, it's not about you, it's about our family that's got to take care of us. Health and well-being, boom, 53% of them said, yeah, high levels of stress, absolutely. Finances, 63% of them, as we talked about earlier, are taking money from their retirement funds or their savings to offset some of the costs of their loved one. This one, the career. Some people sleep, eat, and breathe their career, right? Now they're having to sacrifice that. So again, it's not just about the person that's being taken care of, it's about the family. Let's get into some case studies here. Any questions so far, folks, as we get into some options here that you can look at? Any questions so far? We have a great group, but I haven't seen any questions yet. Any questions? Excellent. What do you all think of this so far? Are you getting information? Are you getting information out of this so far? Yes? No? Great. Excellent. How can you solve the problem? I'm so glad you asked that. How can you solve the problem? So here I have a very simplified diagram. You should see my real diagram that I use with financial professionals. Financial professionals, you know what I'm talking about, the different diagrams I have. It's more complicated than this. So this one is greatly simplified. On the left-hand side, you have the traditional long-term care insurance, right? That's been around since the late 1960s. That used to be nursing home insurance, right? You go to the nursing home, and that's really the only way for the insurance company to pay you out. That's no longer the case. Now there are so many triggers like what I just talked about, as I will talk about, the traditional long-term care insurance. It's great. And by the way, traditional long-term care insurance, per dollar that you pay, it's going to give you the highest, it's generally going to give you the highest long-term care benefit, should you need that long-term care benefit, which I'm kind of foreshadowing here. What does he mean by that? Well, if you don't use it, you lose it, like health insurance, right? So that's one of the beefs against traditional long-term care insurance. Again, we'll go into that. Here's where it gets pretty darn exciting. You have combination products. So here's an example of a combination life insurance / long-term care product. Let's see. Am I going to talk about partnership plans? A little. Yeah, partnership. Steve knows his stuff if he knows what partnership is. What do you think will change in Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security funding in the next 10 years? But yeah, don't get me started on that. That's a long conversation. I will say this: states mandating kind of what Washington State has done. Washington State recently said that you are going to be taxed effectively. You are going to be taxed like 0.58% every year, because the state says if you guys can't afford to pay for your for the nursing home, for example, it ends up with us anyway with Medicaid. So why don't we just start collecting via a tax right now, Washington State, 0.58%, if I remember right. And what that will do is that will create a public long-term care pot of money. It's only like 30 some $1,000s. That's like 1/4 of a year should one have to go to the nursing home. So that's one thing I think is going to change. A lot of states are talking about that structure. And those states are saying, hey, but if you own long-term care insurance to a certain extent, you are not subject to this tax, which is kind of a cool thing there. But there are a lot of changes there. A ton of questions here. By the way, folks, ask those questions. If I don't get to them, either I, if you're my client or family or friend, or your financial advisor is going to be back in touch with you to answer all of these questions if I don't have time to get to all of them. Now, here's an example of a combination life/long-term care policy. So think of this, and this is where all the innovation has happened on these two boxes right here. And I'm going to give you one case study on each of these here in a bit. This is where the innovation has happened right here. Although do not discount the old tried and true traditional long-term care. Let's take a life insurance policy. Let's say that you get a life insurance policy. It's a permanent life insurance policy, not term. It lasts forever, assuming you pay the premium. $300,000 death benefit. Let me ask you a question. With just a life insurance policy, how do you get that death benefit? What needs to happen for that death benefit to be paid out? What needs to happen for the death benefit to be paid, for that insurance company to write a $300,000 check to somebody? It kind of sucks. You have to go and die. That's not, that's kind of a bad thing, right? Well, what if, as these insurance companies have done, they say you have $300,000 there. What if we attached a long-term care rider or a chronic illness rider, almost the same nowadays, used to not be the case. But what if we attach a rider, and what that rider does, sometimes that rider has an extra cost. Sometimes it does not. What does that little rider on your $300,000 life insurance policy do? It adds one minor detail to that policy. And that one minor detail is you no longer have to die to get the death benefit. If you cannot do 2 activities of daily living for a 90-day period of time, for instance, that $300,000 you can take out over X period of time. That's kind of a cool rider. Sometimes they don't cost extra. Now, there are some additional details that your financial advisor, whether it's me or anybody else, need to explain to you, but sometimes it does cost extra. And I'm going to give you an example here in a bit where it does cost extra. And then the far right here, this is for you folks that maybe, you know what, I have 100 grand, 200 grand laying around. I wouldn't mind just wiping out this problem quickly, putting that into a product to where I move it from my left pocket, maybe a savings account or a certificate of deposit that's not doing anything, move it over here, get a higher interest rate, if nothing else. But hey, my $100,000 from a long-term care benefit standpoint turns into $300,000. That's the tripler annuity, as I call them. And by the way, if I want to change my mind, I can get my $100,000 back, maybe plus some interest. There are some surrender charges involved if you take it out early, but this is where the innovation has taken place. And we're going to dive deeper into each of these here. And these are the combination products on the right. And do not mistake this additional rider for, it's just kind of a watered down benefit. First of all, the Swiss Army knife approach, I like the Swiss Army knife approach. You have one product that solves different needs, death benefit, long-term care. But second of all, many times this long-term care benefit can be had for cheaper than just buying a traditional long-term care policy, just this benefit here. Now, granted, you have to pay for a death benefit as well. But my point is there are efficiencies, not to get all geeky with the numbers, but there are efficiencies in having a long-term care benefit attached to either an annuity or life policy. So let's talk about the traditional long-term care. I'm going to go into 3 examples here real briefly, and this, I promise, will crystallize it for you so you know your options. One can get a lot more detailed than this, but I'm not going to make you a rocket scientist on a 1-hour call when it comes to long-term care. All right, here are a couple questions. 1035, an old annuity to a new annuity that withdraws for long-term care? Yes. So what he is talking about is if you have a lot of growth in an annuity, what happens to that growth eventually? It's taxed when somebody withdraws from that annuity. That annuity that I just talked about on the far right that we're going to talk more about, you can move that 1035 exchange it's called, into one of these long-term care annuities. And when you take money from that new long-term care annuity for purposes of long-term care, is that money ever taxed? Is that gain ever taxed? It's 100% tax-free, which is kind of a cool thing. I like tax-free. How much in debt are we as a country, folks? How much in debt are we as a country? $30 trillion. Tax rates have nowhere to go but up. If you went back in time, remember this anecdote here. If you went back in time 1 million seconds, 1 million with an M, 1 million seconds, it was 12 days ago. Conversely, if you went back in time 1 trillion seconds, how long ago was that? That was 32,000 years ago. 32,000 years, 1 trillion seconds versus 1 million seconds, only 12 days. These trillions, there's no way out of it other than increasing taxes. So as we talk about these benefits here, just know that the benefits coming from these long-term care policies, they are generally tax-free. I mean, you can do some stupid stuff that may trigger some sort of taxation, but generally the benefits are tax-free that I'm talking about, which is pretty darn big, right? So let's talk about the traditional long-term care policy. Let's say we have a female age 55. Around the average purchaser of traditional long-term care insurance, and let's say that she buys a traditional long-term care policy. First of all, let's talk about when will the policy pay out to her? Because we want to know that. Do I have to die? No. Here is the benefit trigger on a typical long-term care insurance policy. As I just said, unable to perform 2 of those 6 activities of daily living, or think dementia, right? Severe cognitive impairment, which is permanent and severe cognitive impairment. You're going to trigger pretty much any long-term care policy out there if you have severe cognitive impairment for the most part. But the benchmark when it comes to triggers on policies is that you cannot do 2 of 6 ADLs, as they're called, for a 90-day period of time. And again, most of these, all of these that I'm talking about today are nursing home, assisted living, home health care, private room in a nursing home. The money is yours. You decide what it is that you want to do with it. Now, there are some exceptions. You can't have, and I don't want to go down this road a whole lot. With this particular, with the traditional long-term care insurance, you can't have your cousin come in and take care of you who's not a certified practitioner, a certified caregiver, and pay that person $100,000 a year. No, usually the companies require that you have a licensed care practitioner. There's one product I'm going to talk about here, however, where that's not the case. You can pay however you want, whoever you want. But the benefit settings are usually, yeah, if you're in the nursing home, we are going to reimburse you for any of those expenses. Yeah, if you have assisted living, if you're in an assisted living facility, if you have somebody coming to your house and you're paying that, what, $60,000 per year, yeah, we're going to cut you. We, the insurance company, are going to cut you a check, or directly to the care provider, that check for $5,000 a month. Whatever the benefit is that you choose. So let's take an example. Let's say that you get the full boat, right? You get an $8,000 a month benefit. By the way, folks, don't get scared with some of these numbers here. $8,000 a month is a good size benefit. Why did I choose that? Because that's the $108,000 private room in a nursing home, right? To use industry statistics, $5,000 a month benefit. And you can choose whatever you want. What if I want just a $2,000 a month just to take some of the edge off what maybe that will cost? That's absolutely fine. I'm a believer that some is better than none. Oh, it's either $8,000 a month or nothing. No, that's not what I'm saying. But this example, let's say $8,000 per month on our female age 55. A common benefit period, so $8,000 a month for how long? A common benefit period is 36 months. You can get them for 60 months. You can get them for 24 months. You can get them for 72 months. If you know me, one thing you know about me is I base a lot of my decisions off data, off analytics. I try to leave as little to chance as possible. So I have all these industry stats going through my head, and statistically, one is in the nursing home for around 3 years. Although that's getting higher, folks, why are people now staying in the nursing home longer than what they used to? What is this not the pandemic, but what pandemic is taking place that's making people stay in the nursing homes longer than just a couple years? The food is better. My mom was a nursing home administrator for 30 years. I had to work in a nursing home, and I'll tell you, the food is not better. By the way, she loved her job, and I loved that she loved her job. So it's going in younger age. Yeah, that could be. More dementia, right? Dementia, your brain not living as long as your body. So your body you stay in the nursing home, but you can't take care of yourself because our minds have left us before our body has. So the benefit periods, they're stepping up, or I should say the periods that we stay in the nursing home, but you can choose basically any benefit period that you like. So if you take $8,000 per month times 36 months, this means that what we've done here is we've created a long-term care pool for you that you can dip into should you need this care, should you trigger the benefit, a long-term care pool of $288,000 per year. Well, Charlie, you just talked about inflation. I mean, heck, if it's $8,000 today, what's it going to be 20 years from now when maybe possibly I or my spouse have to go into the nursing home? That is where you also choose an inflation benefit. Although I am more comfortable with the 5% inflation benefit, which means that your benefit steps up by 5% or 3% every year. I'm more comfortable with the 5% because of what I said about healthcare inflation, senior inflation. It's really, really expensive. So a lot of times I'll go 3%, and you could go 3% for 20 years and then it stops inflating, or 3% for life. On this example, I went 3% for life. People are living longer, waiting longer, get severely ill, staying sick longer, and finally dying. That's right. Our bodies many times are outliving our brains, our wherewithal, and that means long-term care. What used to kill us, no, we are living beyond in I shouldn't say a vegetated state, but we are living beyond what used to kill us, just in a very altered state. IRS max over 12,000 and increases annually. Yep, Alan's getting into the per diem stuff, indemnity versus reimbursement. Yep, I'll go a little bit into that there. Now, the $1 million question, I know that you guys are thinking like, okay, Charlie, please tell me that's not it. What does all this cost? What that costs is, in that example, $488 per month for our 55-year-old. If you were to cut that in half, $4,000 per month, you'd be looking at $250 or so per month. And what does that do? Again, I believe some coverage is better than no coverage. $4,000 a month probably would not cover all of your care. But what it would do is it would decrease the rate in which you had to spend down your retirement assets, right? One thing on retirement planning, all of your financial advisors, it's me for some of you, it's somebody else for many of you, all of your financial advisors have the ability to create a beautiful retirement income plan. How do I know that? Because if they work with me, they have the software. It's called Journey Guide, a retirement income plan. How much can you take in retirement, even if you include a long-term care scenario? Let's say I have to go to the nursing home and everything. But then what I like about this, It's just water, I promise, but it's giving me the hiccups. What I like about this software is it's not just about retirement dollars, retirement income. It's about Social Security, when you should file for Social Security, but it is also about, well, can't I just invest the $488 and just pay for it out of my pocket at the time? And wouldn't I be better off? The software answers that. So it says, okay, you're going to have this expense, right? And what happens if you just kept your $488 a month invested and just paid for it at the time? Would you be better off in the long run than if you otherwise bought the insurance and the insurance paid out? I'll tell you that 99.9% of the time, the insurance by a long shot pays off over your lifetime. That's what insurance is about, right? Plus it's tax-free. Not going to go into this a lot. I'm going to move ahead to our second example here. This is where it gets very unique, I'll say, very interesting, because a lot of people are not familiar with this. So here we have a chronic illness rider. So we put a chronic illness rider on a life insurance policy. That life insurance policy has a $300,000 death benefit. So this is the example I used earlier, right? So if you come to me and say, hey, Charlie, I want the cheapest death benefit. For me, this one's actually on a 60-year-old. I don't know why I changed it. Not really any reason why I changed it, but for a 60-year-old female, I want the cheapest $300,000 death benefit you can find me. I cross-reference the entire industry with some software, and what I've found is Protective Life says it's going to be $492 a month. Well, then you come back to me and you say, but what if I add their chronic illness rider, which they do charge an extra premium for it, but I'm going to get into that extra premium. Is it worth it? I'll let you be the judge of that. So that's when I say, okay, so let's look at this. So it's the same trigger effectively on this chronic illness rider. If you can't do 2 activities of daily living for a 90-day, if you're severely cognitively impaired, then you get your $300,000 death benefit. Granted, it's paid out over time, like all of these policies are, but you get that. Benefit settings, they just write you a check, basically. They just write you a check for a certain percentage of what that death benefit is. I want to say this one I ran at $8,000 a month to keep it the same as the other one. They just write you a check. So if you want your cousin Vinny to come in and take care of you and you pay him $8,000 a month, you can do that, because this is called an indemnification benefit, an indemnification rider. Again, the benefit is $8,000 per month. That means that you have around 3 years, again, 3 years in benefits. Okay, inflation, this particular solution does not have inflation riders, but I still love it. I love it a lot. How much does this cost? So this costs, instead of $492 per month, just the death benefit coverage, this costs $704 per month. Folks, question for you. Were you paying attention? How much did it cost per month for roughly the same amount of coverage on the traditional long-term care policy? How much did it cost per month on the traditional long-term care policy to get a very similar long-term care pool, right? That was actually $288,000. It costs, $488 per month. So for an additional $212, that's that efficiency that I was talking about, or a total of $704. If you die, your beneficiary gets $300 grand. If you go into the nursing home, if you need in-home care, even if you don't need in-home care, if you just trigger the policy, they will write you a check. The insurance company will write you a check. That is called a life insurance combination long-term care policy, or a hybrid long-term care policy. Now check this out, folks. The annuity here is very interesting. This is the most unique one of the group. And here is the concept. This is for you folks that maybe have a chunk of lazy money sitting around. Here's the scenario. So let's say you're the client, you have CDs, you have maybe some annuities, you have some stocks, bonds. The amounts, let's say you have around $1.5 million. I think this comes to like $1.6 million. You have lazy money up here, right? These may not be earning a whole heck of a lot for you. Lazy money. Well, what if you took that $150,000, just this example, and you put that into a hybrid annuity. Here's what happens day one. On day one, your annuity is probably growing faster for you after you moved it over. I'm talking cash value. Your cash value is probably growing faster than where it was before. Right now, the rates are anywhere from 3% to 3.75%. Pretty darn good in today's environment, although rates are edging up, right? Now, many times I'm stopped right here like, why would I not do this? Like, well, hold on. We haven't even talked about the long-term care. This is just using that annuity as a savings vehicle, right? Which you certainly can do. So very low apprehension a lot of times folks have when it comes to looking at this solution, because if I want to change my mind, I can get my money plus possibly some growth out. Although it's an annuity, if you take it out too soon, there are surrender charges. If I die, my beneficiary gets whatever the value is. But what about long-term care? This is the cool part. Your money either doubles or triples. So that long-term care pool either doubles or it triples. Why would I not choose it to triple? You have to be healthy enough, right? You have to be healthy enough. And then your $150,000 from a long-term care benefit. Keep in mind, you still have that $150,000. If you die, it goes to a beneficiary. If you change your mind, you can get it back, of course, pending surrender charges. But what if you need long-term care? It either doubles if you're not real healthy, or it triples. That's kind of a cool concept. And if you divide that by 72 months, which is the benefit period, you get $6,250 per month. That is the long-term care tripler. If you and or your spouse have a good feeling that one of you is going to need long-term care eventually, which I have that feeling, I'm very healthy, I just know the statistics, then why would you not take lazy money and triple that lazy money, leverage that lazy money on a tax-free basis? And that, my folks, is the spectrum here: traditional long-term care, combination life, and combination annuity. Now, Medicaid, I'm not going to spend a ton of time because we're at the top of the hour. Medicaid, there are strategies. And basically what Medicaid says, and I want you all to fill out the evaluation, so please don't leave yet. Just 3 minutes and we'll be done here. Please fill out the evaluation. And also tell us if you want to remain plugged into these meetings as we do these monthly. It is a matter of taking what the Department of Human Services, whatever it's called in your state, considers countable assets. Okay, so if I need to get this down to below $2,000, what are some strategies that I could use to move this over here on the left-hand side over to the right-hand side? There are some strategies that you can use. There is only really one strategy that I know of when it comes to taking money, say like an IRA, for example. How do you turn that into a non-countable asset? There are no special mutual funds. There are no special certificates of deposit. Medicaid specifically says a Medicaid compliant annuity that turns that money into a payment stream, because that payment stream is not an asset. It has to be one of the handful or so Medicaid compliant annuities, only a handful throughout the entire country. And this is highly specialized stuff. Your advisor knows what they're talking about with this. How do I know that? Because I work with them. I know what I'm talking about with that. But if you know somebody that's staring down the barrel of losing assets because they did not do any of the planning that I talked about previously, this can be a last resort strategy to save the farm, to save the house, the second house, maybe a lake home or whatever. Farmers here in Iowa, I experience it pretty much every week, this concern. Calls to action here. Number one, next month's webinar, where to save when nowhere feels safe. Make sure you tell me on the evaluation if you want to join that. Folks, safe solutions. There is one place that's safe, and that is when insurance companies are saying, we will guarantee you this contractually, we will guarantee you this guaranteed rate for 3 years, for 4 years, for 5 years. There are also products out there that say, if the market goes down, you lose zero. If the market goes up, you get a big percentage of what that market goes up. Those are called indexed annuities. There are places that are safe today, folks. You just have to know who to ask, and that is your financial advisor. Get that retirement income plan that I talked about, that retirement income plan that shows the long-term care stuff, Social Security, how much you can take from your portfolio once you retire, and then the evaluation. Folks, I have a ton of questions. Somebody's going to be in touch with you. I ran a little verbose, I guess, like I always do, but please take the evaluation here and let me know if you have any questions, folks. Thank you.